Hey everyone, so today I'm going to take some time to give you a demo of Nextbase and help you build your next SaaS project. So we're going to start by cloning the repository. So once you buy Nextbase, you'll get access to this repository and you can then clone this in your terminal. You can clone this into your terminal by doing git clone and then type the SSH or HTTPS URL, whichever you like. So I'm going to clone it to a folder called Twime. So this is an app that I'm building, and I'm going to use Nextbase to build the Twime app as well. So Twime app is a real app that we're building, and I'm going to start building it with Nextbase now. So let's head over into the Twime folder and open it with Visual Studio Code. You can use any editor that you like, but I prefer using Visual Studio Code. So first up, when you look at the directory structure, it looks something like this. You have the SRC folder, which contains all the Next.js magic. So we have the app folder, which has layouts, server components, all of that stuff. The app folder is new. It was launched in December 2022, so about a month ago. And it's really powerful. It makes data fetching, suspenseful data loading really easy. You should definitely start using this as soon as possible. I thoroughly enjoy building apps with the app folder. Then there is the components folder, and within components folder you have a few utility components and then presentational components over here. And these components are used across multiple pages, so they sit inside the components folder. You have some context, some hooks, and the pages folder where we have some API routes. So the app folder contains all the actual pages within your app. So we have the authenticated pages layout, so only logged in users will be able to access pages in this route. We have application admin routes, some external pages where you don't need to be authenticated to view those pages, and then the login, sign up, forget password pages. Right, we'll delve into them deeper either in this video or in the documentation site. But yeah, so then there is the Supabase folder, and this contains the migrations that you'll need to push to the Supabase project. I'm going to show it to you. You don't have to worry too much about migrations if you're not comfortable with it. I understand that most people who buy Nextbase are probably good at either front-end or back-end. So if you are predominantly a front-end engineer, you don't have to worry too much about migrations. If you are a back-end engineer also, you don't have to work with migrations in Supabase over here. If you don't want to, you can directly work in the Supabase website. But this is just the starting point for Nextbase. So we're going to push these tables into the actual Supabase project, which we'll create shortly. I'm going to show all of that to you, but I just wanted to give you an overview. And then we have the public folder where you have your image assets, video assets, and all of that. Then we have the emails folder where you can configure email components. So I've configured React email within Nextbase. So React email allows you to write emails in the form of React components. Very powerful. You can use React email with multiple email providers such as SendGrid, and multiple other platforms, Postmark, etc. So you can use any mail provider of your choice. React email is going to work with it. Then we have an E2E folder where you can set up integration tests if you want. So integration tests is configured here. You can just extend this to all of your pages if you want. And then we have unit tests as well within the source code. So yeah, it's up to you. If you like writing test cases, we have both end-to-end and unit tests configured within Nextbase. Awesome. So now let's take a look at the env folder. So you need these env values to be able to use your SaaS project well. We're going to configure a few of them now, a few of them later. But what we're going to do is we're going to clone this file and remove the .example part. So now we have the .env.local file, and we're going to put in actual env variables here to start developing our project locally. Alright, so first let's install the packages that we need. So let's do yarn. We're going to install a bunch of packages for us. And meanwhile, let's head over to Supabase So if you don't have an account in Supabase yet, you'll have to create an account, and then you'll need to create a new project. So I'm going to create a new project called Twime, and then I'm going to create a password. I already created a password ahead of time, so I'm just going to use that. So I stored this password in the password manager. You'll also have to do that. So whichever password you enter here, just make sure you store it in a safe place, because we'll be using this again in our local environment. So okay, yeah, put in the password, create a new project, and yes, the project is being set up. So let's go back to our editor. So packages were installed. So Nextbase already comes with the Supabase CLI the Supabase tool, the CLI tool. So you just have to run yarn Supabase and then some commands. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to log in to Supabase. So what you have to do is you have to run yarn Supabase login. It's going to prompt you for an access token, and you can head over to your settings. So just head over to supabase.com, app.supabase.com, and you have an access token section here. Just create a new token and then paste it here, and that will log you in. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do it again, but you can do this if you are running Supabase for the first time on your local machine. So once that is done, we'll go back to Supabase, the project, and then take a look at the settings. Here we need to grab a bunch of values. So the first thing that we need is the Supabase URL. So copy this, and we'll need to update it in our env variables. So next public Supabase URL. So this is where we need to put in Supabase URL. One thing that that I need to tell you here is that all env variables which start with next_public are exposed to both the backend and the frontend. So these are env variables that are fine to be exposed in both backend and frontend. And the other ones, stripe secret key, Supabase project ref, some of these are better off to be only exposed in the backend. So Next.js by default only exposes env variables that start with next public to the front end. All the other env variables only are exposed in the backend. So just make sure that you don't change these env variables without thinking everything through, because some secrets like the stripe secret key, the stripe Supabase JWT secret, etc., these are very critical for your application, and you have to make sure that they are not exposed in the front end. Okay. So I put in the Supabase URL. Let's grab a bunch of other values, and now we are ready to start using the local environment. The only problem is that we haven't set up the database yet. So if you look at, so this is your project space. If you look at the backend tables, Nextbase promises organizations, users, all of that stuff, but there is nothing here configured. Tables are empty, views are empty, database are empty, right? So you need to run a command called yarn Supabase db push. So this will create tables, views, database triggers, database functions, policies, etc. for you. You just have to run this single command, and all of the so the things that will get pushed to your database are within Supabase migrations. So these two SQL files are going to run on the server, the Supabase project. So just run this. Oh yeah, sorry. There is one other step to do. You have to link the project to the Supabase CLI. So the command to do that is yarn Supabase link and mention the project ref. So project ref, and then the project ref is simply this. Put in here, and this is where you use the password that we saved earlier. So I'm just going to grab it from my one password, enter it here, and now the project is now linked. Now we can run yarn Supabase db push. It's going to take a few moments, and then push all the migrations to the tables. And now if you refresh, we should see a bunch of tables, bunch of views created for us in this project, right? So we have the app settings table, customers table, and so on. So most of these tables are what you will use often. there are some tables like customers, prices, and products, and subscriptions, which are related to Stripe. So this is where you're going to store all your Stripe products, Stripe customers, the pricing for your products, and so on. These other tables are self-explanatory. You can just take a look and it will be clear to what they are. But I'm also going to document all of these in the documentation section, and they are probably already up by now, by the time you're watching the video. So these are the tables. And now one interesting thing that I would like to show you is, if you look at these tables, for example, if you look at organizations table, there is this thing here called 4 active RLS policies. So RLS policies are short form for row level security policies. So what they mean is that your tables are not just simply rows of data, they are also secure with these policies. So what happens is that if, let us say, you have many organizations in your table, so many rows, then members of one organization cannot view the members of another organization unless the policy allows them. So, and what does the policy allow them? So all team members can read organizations. So team members can only read organizations they are part of, and team members can only update organizations they are part of, and only team admins or owners can delete the organizations. So these policies make sure that even accidentally your data will not leak to people who don't have authorization to access those values. So row level security is a very powerful concept in Supabase. It's a concept in Postgres, and Supabase have done a very good job of making it very easy to create policies. You can create new policies for your tables by using the new policy section here, and just follow the tutorials in Supabase and you'll be good to go. So make sure that whenever you create new tables, you follow row level security as much as you can, and keep your data very secure. So RLS policies are also applicable to some extent to event storage. So by default, you get 4 buckets. So the public assets buckets are accessible to everyone. Everyone can view the contents in this bucket. Public user assets are buckets which are sort of a mix. So a user can add data to this bucket, but everyone can see the contents in the bucket. Right, I'm going to show that to you in a moment. Then there is user assets, which are private buckets. There are project assets, which are private project or organization level assets. These can be configured to your liking. Just something, I just created this bucket so that when you are using them, you have a good segregation about which asset should go. Right, and the policies are configured in such a way that a user can access only their bucket and not anyone else's. You can take a look at these assets once you start using this project. Awesome. There is also the authentication section where all your users who have logged into your app are visible here. Right, and you have a bunch of other tools here that you can use. But I think we are more or less set up with Supabase. We can now start running our project. So what we'll do is we'll run yarn and dev. So this does 2 things. The first thing it will do is it will grab all the types of the tables here and generate TypeScript types for you, and they are stored in src lib database types. So this is where types are generated. So tables such as customers, organizations, etc. These are all typed for you. So it's like it takes a look at all the table structures in Supabase and generates the TypeScript types. Right. So I think we are now ready to run the server. We can take a look at the server at localhost 3002 /dashboard. Actually, just the home page. So this will open up your Nextjs server. So one thing I want to emphasize here is that the landing page here does have some styles, but Nextbase does not promise you any great styles. It just integrates Tailwind to some extent so that you get something reasonably good to look at project. But styling is not of essence in Nextbase. You can use any styling library that you want. We just wanted to make sure that we present whatever we built to you in a meaningful way, in somewhat beautiful way. And we went with Tailwind because Tailwind does not really come in the way of performance of your Nextjs app. It is built at build time. So which means that when your pages are rendering, there is no dynamic compute there, and your page does not really slow down. Also, Tailwind CSS is fairly easy to use for most people, and it's also easy to remove if you don't want to use Tailwind. You just have to remove the style sheet and it's gone, right? So we went with Tailwind for that reason, but it's up to you. You can use Tailwind, you can remove it, your call. So let's go to the login page. You can click on this link, it'll take you to the login page. Again, a basic login page is here. You can configure your providers here. You can look at our documentation to figure out how to do this. But let's sign up now for the first time. So I'm going to create a new email address, .5.com, and then a simple password. Okay, we are now signed in. It's going to take us to the dashboard page, where by default it's going to grab a gravatar image of yours if you have associated with your email. But you can also update your profile pic here. I'm going to show you the profile pic updation in a bit. Let's just write a name here. I'm going to call this Bhargav admin and then save. So now my profile is updated and it's going to take me to the dashboard, and the dashboard has the list of organizations by default. Again, you can configure the screen to however you like your SaaS to behave, but this is a good start, we feel, so that you can see a list of all your organizations. You can go into an organization, look at its settings, and take it from there. So by default, organizations have an organization homepage where you can build your own SaaS implementation, and then you have a settings page here where you can edit the title of the organization. You can manage your team, you can invite more users. So I'm going to create another user, and I'll show you how to invite another user here. But and then there is the billing section. So once we configure Stripe, the pricing tables are going to appear here. We don't have that yet. So for now, let's take a look at the other sections in this page. You also have the account settings area where you can manage your name and you can upload an image. So let me find an image. Yep, let's do this. It's going to upload my avatar, and then it's going to shortly get updated here. And now if you look at the storage, you can see that this avatar will get updated to the public user assets folder under a folder whose name matches the UID of the user. And the policies are configured in such a way that a user whose ID matches the name of the folder, they can upload files to this folder, and everyone else can see these files, but they cannot update or modify the contents of these folders. So public user assets folder is configured in that way. And user assets are private user assets, and only the user can see them. Only the user can do CRUD operations on this bucket. So for each individual user, they have a folder based on their UID, and they have full control over the contents of that folder. Okay, so this way you can configure. You can allow your users to configure their settings. There's also the security settings area where they can update their email address and do that. They can also update their password here. The password gets updated and they're taken away from the security page. Okay, so I think that is a good stop for this part of the demo. Next, what we'll do is we'll deploy this site to Vercel, and then configure Stripe. So let's do that. Let's head over to vercel.com. Right? Okay, so let's head over to GitHub and create a new repository for this project. So I'm going to call this Twime Web. So I'm going to call this Twime. Then create a repository. I'm going to grab this URL, the git SSH URL, and then I can either remove the origin. So for example, for reference, the remote currently is configured to be Nextbase. You can either remove this origin if you want by git remote rm origin, or you can just add another origin with a different alias. So I'll just add a new alias. So I'm going to do git remote add. I'm going to call this maybe fork, and then put in the SSH URL. So now both remotes will exist, and you can, if Nextbase releases new features, you can grab the new features and pull them into your local repository and then push them to Twime, right, or to your own SaaS project. I would recommend this approach, but it's up to you. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll push the contents of this repository to Twime, git push fork main. Okay, so until now the Twime repository is empty, but I just pushed all the contents of my local repository to Twime. Now we are ready to deploy it. So now let's go to Vercel, and then we'll have to import Twime. Twime is not there, so I'll just adjust my GitHub permissions. So now I'll head over to my repositories, I'll grab Twime, and then allow Vercel to access that repository, and then import that project. So now once again I'll have to import the env variables here. Okay, so I think we have added the basic environment variables that are absolutely essential to run the app. So I'm going to deploy this app now. So it's going to take maybe a minute and a half to deploy this app to Vercel. So meanwhile, so the next step is to configure Stripe. So let's head over to Stripe and create a new account. So I'm going to head over to stripe.com. And I'll need to configure, as a minimum, the least we should be able to configure right now is to create a test account. To create a test account, you don't really have to configure your banking and all of that stuff. You can just create a new account, just enter something here, then account name, create an account, and by default it will take you to the test mode where you can just start building your application without really worrying about banking settings and all of that. So create a test account in create an account in Stripe with test mode. Okay, so the account is ready. We should see our landing page, and we should be able to log in from here as well. There is one setting that we need to update. So we can grab the Twime, this new URL, and go to our Supabase and just tell Supabase that our app is now at a different URL, and you can configure that in authentication, URL configuration, and then update the site URL here. And then also add the localhost to the redirect URLs here. So just specify localhost 3002 and then ** to configure all the URLs that are possible as redirect URLs here. So just add it here, and you can add, if you are deploying to other URLs, you can add all of them here. So this should be good to go. So now we can head over to twime.vercel.app, or wherever your app is hosted, and just log in with your credentials. Okay, so this will take us to my dashboard once again, and I'm able to use my app as usual. So now let's head over to my organization and view its organization settings and take a look at billing. So as you can see, this is currently empty. So now let's change that. Let's configure our Vercel project with the new Stripe env variables that we just created earlier. So let's head over to environment variables once again and just select all of these, and then grab the value, and the key name is called next public Stripe publishable key. The other one is Stripe secret key. So once again, so these are test keys. Eventually, when you deploy this live, after you configure your Stripe account to be live, after you enter your bank details, all of that, then you'll actually get another set of keys which are live. So this is where actual money is involved. For now, this is fine. You're only testing. But this is a good replication of what will actually happen eventually. Anyway, so we have configured the Stripe, two other Stripe keys. There is another Stripe key that we need to configure, which is called Stripe webhook secret. So put in that value here, and then you can grab that value by going to webhooks, adding an endpoint, and then entering the endpoint URL. So the endpoint URL is at wherever your app is hosted at, which is twime.vercel.app, and then API Stripe webhooks. So the reason why we need this webhook is that whenever something happens in Stripe, it can be a new customer got added, a new product was added, a new price was added, can be any event in Stripe. It's going to call this webhook with that event, and you can respond to that webhook by either updating your database or sending an email, or up to you. In our case, we are taking a look at all the events that occur, and when a relevant event occurs, for example, a new product was created or a new price was created, we are going to update a database with those details. Let's select all the events that we need. Select all events, add events, and then add endpoint. So now the webhook has been linked. So now that we have created a webhook, we are now ready to receive events. But before we receive events, we have to take this signing secret and add as env variable to this area, the Stripe webhook secret. So let's add this here and save it. Okay, so now this env variable is now added to our Vercel app. So now let's head over to deployments and then redeploy the website. So this will now redeploy the existing commit, the state of the project, with the newly updated environment variables. So our site is now deployed. Now let us head over to Stripe and create our products. So the API is now, so the web app is now ready to receive events in Vercel. So let's head over to Stripe and create our first set of products. So I'm going to call this the free plan. Enter our description, and then $0 US monthly and $0 US yearly. So let's create another product. This is called the Pro plan. This is a Pro plan, 25 USD, 250 USD yearly. So now our products are saved. If you look at a dashboard, we should see both our products created now. And now let's head over to Supabase and take a look at products. Both our products appear over here, and all the prices of those products are also appearing over here, which is great. So now if we head over to our dashboard and go to my organization and then organization settings and then billing, we can see that we are now able to select the plans. So you can also toggle this just to show you that you can segregate the prices into monthly and yearly. You can choose to use it or not, but I'm going to select the monthly plan. I'm going to choose this. It should take me to the Stripe checkout page. Oh, I didn't click on it, sorry. So, oh sorry, I didn't reload the page after deploying, right? Okay, yep, makes sense. So I could then click on choose, which will take me to the Stripe checkout page, where I can choose this plan. I can enter my card details. I'll choose a billing address somewhere. And pay for this. Again, this is test mode, so you're not really dealing with real money. It will take me back to my organization settings where I am on the Pro plan. Okay, so one thing I want to tell you is that if you click on manage subscription now, you're going to get an error because you haven't configured the customer portal link. So just copy this URL here and just paste it here and configure a customer portal for your users. You have to do this for both the test mode and live mode to allow your users to change their subscription if they want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow my users to switch plans. Okay, and then I'll save my I'll add all these plans to the customer portal screen and save the changes. That should do it, I think. So now I can click on manage subscription, which will now allow me as a user to modify my plan if I want to. So I can just click on update plan here, and then that should do it. Okay, so Stripe is fully configured now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another account and then come back, and then I'll show you some cool features about the admin panel. Awesome. So I created another user, literally called another user, and so there are two users in the app now, and I want to make this user Bhargav admin as the super admin of the app. To do that, I can just go to my Supabase dashboard, and within the SQL editor I can write a command called select make user app admin, and then put in a couple of quotes, and here I'll need to paste in the UID of the user who I want to make application admin. So make really sure that this is the user that you trust, who is your teammate or something. Go to authentication, grab the user ID. So this is the user I want to make user ID. So I'll grab this user ID here and then paste in the editor and run this. So now this user has become a super admin or the application admin of this app. And now if I reload the page as the admin, the Bhargav admin account, then I should see an admin panel link here. And when I go to the admin panel link, I have access to a command here called maintenance mode. I have access to the users table where I can view all the users of the app, and I can look at all the organizations that have been created by all these users. You can extend this dashboard to have whichever data that you prefer, but I just wanted to give you a good start here, right? So there are two nice features here in the admin panel that I want to show you. The first thing is that let us say this another user person has an error, and only that user, or it's a rare error that is difficult to reproduce, and you want to log in as that user to figure out what the cause is. One way to do that would be to do a video call with that user and look at their screen. Another easy way is to just take their permission and then log in as that user. Just click on this button. It will give you a login URL which you can paste into an incognito window, and then now you will now log in as that user, right? So in that you will be in that dashboard screen and logged in as that user, and now you can debug the issue in peace, solve that issue and tell the user that hey, this bug has been fixed, thank you, and you can solve many difficult bugs using this amazing feature. So okay, so this is called user impersonation. It's a pretty powerful debugging feature, and we are very proud to be giving this to all our users within Nextbase. Another feature that I want to show you is maintenance mode. So let us say you are trying to fix a difficult bug. It's probably taking a lot of time, and you don't want your users to keep adding new data while you fix it. It could be a faulty migration. It could be some data that has been mangled in your database, and you want to take some time to fix the issue. What you can do is you can enable maintenance mode, and this banner will now be visible to all the logged in users, and some models that you choose can be made read only. So what happens now is that now as this user I can reload the page, and I also see as another user that the app is in read only mode and it's in maintenance mode. And let us say I try to create an organization. My button here is disabled and I see a tooltip, and even the backend actually does not allow you to create an organization. It's not just the button that is disabled, even the models, the row level security policies do not allow you to create another an organization in the backend also. The same thing applies to also updating their email. So this button is also disabled. As you can see, some buttons are disabled, some are not. So this button is enabled. Only the buttons that really matter, where you want to protect users from updating new data, you can make them disabled. Again, this is a really cool feature, helps you debug the issue, and once you have solved the issue, you can disable the maintenance mode, and then the users will no longer see that it is in maintenance mode, right? So these are powerful features that you can start using with Nextbase today. The moment you the moment you create a SaaS with Nextbase, you get access to all of these features. Just about configuring all of them. So finally, I want to take some time to just quickly show you a very a small feature. Let's just allow users to create some content in our site. So I'm going to create a new table. I just want to show you how you can create your own tables. This is a pretty big topic, and you'll probably have to refer to Supabase documentation, Nextbase documentation, and so on. But I'll just give you a quick peek into how the development process will look like. So the first off, what you will do is you'll probably create a table. I'm going to call this table tweets. So Twime is a tweet scheduler app, and I want my users to be able to create tweets. I'm not really concerned about many columns. Eventually I'll probably add more, but for now I just want them to be able to add some tweets. And this is of type text. Okay, and I'm going to save this. So now this is going to create a new table and add it to my database. Okay, so now I'm going to write a query to be able to view the list of tweets in the browser. So first of all, let me add a couple of rows here. I'll just add some, hey, Nextbase. So ideally these are created by an end user, but I just want to show you how to retrieve data in the front end. So how are you? So 2 tweets, just any content, right? I just want to show you how to load this data in the front end. So now let's go back to our code. We'll now head over back to our development server. It is still running. So now let's go to Supabase queries. So this is where I organized all the queries in one place. So what you can do is you can create another section here for maybe tweets and just call it tweets per se. And let's create a new query. So maybe const get tweets, and then it'll probably take the Supabase client. And generally you'll probably take the organization as well, but we're not concerned with it right now for this scenario. What we want to do is we want to fetch the data, await Supabase dot from. Now if you open the VS Code auto suggest, it does not show the table tweets. The reason being we did not restart the dev server, so the types are actually outdated. We'll have to restart the dev server so that new types are generated for the new table that we created, and now the autocomplete will start showing tweets as well. So if I open this now, I see the tweets table here. I can select that, and then I want to get all of them, so I'm just going to select star. And if there's an error, then I want to maybe just add this error to my error sync. You can, for now it just only logs the error, but you can configure this to your maybe Sentry or anything, and then handle the error in whichever way you see fit, and then you can return the data. Right, so now if you look at get tweets, it is fully nicely typed. It also knows the structure of the return type. This is the exact structure that was present within the Supabase table. Okay, so now let's start loading this data in the front end. What we want to do is now we want to create a query within React Query Hooks file. So let's go to React Query Hooks file here and create another section for maybe tweets. I just like to make sections here to keep everything organized. Now let's create a function called use tweets. Okay, so just a simple query that fetches tweets. Get tweets is what we want, right? Get tweets, yep. And use query takes in a key as well, and this is mainly used for caching. Pretty powerful feature. If you're not familiar with use query, React query, that's fine. It's you can just put in a string to identify this query. But yeah, so now this creates a query, a React query hook that you can now utilize within your components. So what we'll do is let's go to dashboard. So within app there is authenticated pages. So authenticated pages are for all logged in users. Then there is a separate section called application admin. So app admins here, right? So dashboard route will correspond to user pages dashboard. So this content corresponds to the dashboard route, and organization corresponds to the organization folder here. So each page is a folder, right? And then application admin is another set of pages for the application admin user, right? So now we want to update the dashboard page. So the page is the first file that will be loaded by default by Next.js, and organization list is this component, is this one. Now I just want to display the tweets over here. So what I'll do is I'll create another file called tweets list.tsx and just create a tweets list file, and I'm going to use tweets, awesome, and it returns data and it also returns some nice utility variables like is loading, error, etc. So if it is loading, I'm going to show the loading screen. If there's an error, I'll return an error message. Otherwise, I'll just grab the tweets. That is good to go. So now this will load a list of all the tweets, and now I can render this in my page component. So I'll just put in a HR and then render my tweets list component. So this should throw an error, ideally, because what we are doing is in a page component, we are trying to load a component that is using hooks. So the page component by default is a server component. Server components are capable of asynchronous features such as fetching data within the component itself and waiting and postponing render until the data is fetched. So the server components are really special, and they are a new feature added in Nextbase 13. So I wanted to show you this, as well as showing you the distinction between server and client components. So the first client component that is rendered in a server component needs to have a declaration called use client. So now this will remove the error. So the tweets will now load, hopefully. Okay, and the reason the tweets did not load actually is because of another thing that I wanted to show, which is row level security. So because by default we configured all our tables with row level security, no one is now able to access these tweets. There is security, but we did not define access. So now let's just create a simple policy and just allow every user who is authenticated to be able to access the tweets. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say enable read access to everyone. Use this template, and I'm going to apply this policy to all the authenticated users. I only want them to be able to see the tweets. So now I'm going to review this and I'm going to say save policy. Everything looks good. So now let's reload the page. There we go. So the tweets have loaded now. That's great. Let's go to the admin panel once again and just see the interaction once again. So let's go to the admin panel. Now let's click on dashboard. Let's reload the page. There's caching, right? Okay. So let's reload the page. You can see that organizations loaded. When organizations data loaded, there was no loading screen. But when these things loaded, the tweets loaded, there was a loading screen. So it's a choice. If you want your data to have a loading screen, you can avoid loading that data in the server component. So what we achieved now is just simply loading data in a traditional way in the client components. The great feature that Nextbase 13 gives you is server components. So what I can do is I can load the tweets in the first render as well and just postpone rendering until the data is fetched. So what I can do here is in the fetch data part of the page itself, just like I loaded organizations, I can load my tweets. So I can just call this initial tweets list and then await get tweets and then pass in the Supabase, the server Supabase client, which is available in the argument. Now return this in the fetch data part. And now I'll grab the initial tweets list and then pass it down to tweet list component. So basically, before this dashboard page has rendered this, I also fetched the initial set of tweets in the server component as well. And now I'm going to pass this data as props to tweets list component, and I'm going to forward this tweets list to the use tweets React hook. So let's define, because we're using TypeScript, it makes sense to define the types or the shape of the initial tweets list. It's pretty easy. We know that this is a tweets table row. So I created a util called table. There's a type here called table, and I can just specify that the name of the table that I'm referring to. So I know that initial tweets list is an array of tweets, and table of tweets will simply give an object, so one row, and this is an array of tweets, so I can just put in an array. So now I can expect the initial tweets list to be an array of tweets. Now I can grab initial tweets list and pass it down as initial data to initial tweets list. So within use tweets again, I'll have to grab the initial tweets list again, just put in the same type here, so table of tweets. And now, sorry, this is initial data, right? Initial data. Now grab initial data, and React query already has support for initial data. That's exactly why I named it initial data. I'll just have to pass it down to a key called initial data is initial data. That's it. And I can just remove this. Now let's take a look at the behavior. Now if we go back to our page and reload, you will see that the tweets have loaded in the server itself, and then the front end also loaded them and overlaid on top of this. So as a user, you will not see the tweets load again, but both the server and client fetch the data. You can also configure the client to not fetch the data if not needed, and you can configure the caching rules and all of that. React query is amazing. It plays so well with Next.js, Supabase, Next.js and Supabase. This is an amazing stack, and I love using it. So wherever I built in most areas in this web app, I've configured both server and client components so that you don't see as many loading screens as possible. So Nextbase comes with all of this built in, and you can also refer to the code base and figure out how to make your own screens where you minimize the loading screens and make the experience as amazing as possible to your end users. So I hope this was useful for you, and I hope you enjoy using Nextbase, and I hope you purchase it. It took a lot of effort for us to build Nextbase, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. So thank you very much. This is Bhargav. I wish you all the best. Have a good day. Bye-bye.